the galaxy had long since stopped paying attention to humanity. For most alien civilizations, humans were nothing more than minor players on the galactic stage, curious, talkative, and always eager to trade. They were known for selling rare minerals from their young colonies, for sharing strange music and colorful art, for asking far too many questions during council meetings. But as for military power, no one took them seriously. In the long history of interstellar politics, humans had never built fleets large enough to matter. They had never started wars, never threatened entire star systems. To the older empires, they were harmless, small, fragile, easy to overlook. And so, when tensions began rising between the great powers of the Orion Arm, no one thought to ask humanity's opinion. The council chambers echoed with the voices of species whose empires spanned hundreds of worlds. They spoke of troop movements, contested sectors, and new weapon designs. Humans were there too, sitting quietly in the far rows, almost invisible, but in the deep void far from the eyes of the galaxy something was moving. It began with a signal. On the edge of known space, a lone scout ship from the Kreth Dominion drifted through a dark, empty sector. Their mission was simple: map new trade routes, check for pirate activity, and return home. The crew expected nothing but silence out here. Then, the ship's sensors picked up something strange. At first, it was nothing more than a faint ripple and unusual distortion in the readings. It didn't match any known ship signature. It wasn't a meteor, and it wasn't debris. It was too regular, too precise. "Captain, I think something is out there," the sensor officer said, his voice tight. The captain leaned over the console. "How big?" the officer swallowed. "Bigger than anything we've seen. But there's no heat, no light. It's like a shadow in space." Impossible, the captain thought. Space was full of darkness, but this was darker than dark. It was an absence, a shape that shouldn't exist. The Kreth scout ship moved closer, adjusting course. To follow the faint readings, the shadow was moving too, gliding silently through the void. No radio signals, no energy trail, and then without warning, it was gone. One moment the readings were there, the next they vanished completely. It was as if the shadow had slipped out of existence. The crew searched for hours, scanning every sector, but the void had swallowed it whole. Finally, the captain ordered them to turn back. No one noticed the small, silent probe that detached from the shadow before it disappeared. A probe that quietly followed the Kreth ship all the way back to its home sector. Within days, rumors began spreading in hidden corners of the galactic network. Traders spoke in hushed voices about ghost fleets that could not be tracked. Some claimed entire convoys had vanished without leaving wreckage. Others said it was nothing more than a pirate trick, a scare story to keep merchants off certain routes. But not all reports could be dismissed. On 3 separate occasions, large, alien warships were found drifting in deep space, their crews gone, their systems completely dead. There were no blast marks, no hull damage only, an eerie emptiness, as if the ships had been swallowed by the void and spat back out. The Council Security Bureau began to take notice. Patrol fleets were doubled in sensitive sectors. New sensor arrays were installed to detect stealth activity. Yet no matter what they tried, the ghostly shapes never appeared on their screens. To the Council, it was a mystery. To some, it was a threat. But to the humans sitting quietly at the far end of the chamber, it was neither. It was preparation. On Earth, far from the Council's eyes, deep underground facilities hummed with activity. Inside massive, sealed hangars, engineers worked in complete silence. There were no open transmissions, no public records, no official recognition of the work being done here. Even the workers themselves were sworn to secrecy, forbidden from speaking of what they had seen. In the largest hangar of all, a single warship sat in the darkness. Its surface was unlike any other vessel in the galaxy. No reflective plating, no visible weapons, no running lights. Its hull seemed to swallow the light around it, bending the shadows in strange ways. A voice echoed in the chamber. Testing will begin at 0300 hours. Bring the power cores online. No one outside of this room would ever know the ship existed. Not yet. Back in the council chamber, alien representatives argued loudly over security measures. Some demanded that all smaller species should surrender military command to the great empires for protection. Others dismissed the ghost fleet reports entirely, calling them superstition. The human ambassador sat quietly, hands folded, saying nothing. An old Zarkan warlord turned to him. "You've been very silent, Ambassador. Does humanity have nothing to add to this discussion?" The human's eyes were calm, but his words were slow and deliberate. "Sometimes, warlord, the quiet ones are simply listening." The Zarkan snorted and turned away, dismissing the human as irrelevant. But far beyond the council chamber, in the dark void of space, something vast was beginning to move. The Kreth Dominion scout captain who had first seen the shadow couldn't sleep. The memory of that impossible shape haunted his dreams. He replayed the sensor logs over and over, trying to find something, anything that could explain what he had seen. And then, one night, a message appeared on his private terminal. No sender, no origin, only a single sentence. "Do not follow the shadows. They are not meant for you." The captain's blood ran cold because deep down, he already knew the truth. Whatever was out there, it wasn't the work of any alien empire. It was human. And if that was true, then the galaxy was in more danger than anyone realized. Weeks passed, but the rumors only grew stronger. Across the far reaches of the Orion Arm, strange disappearances were being reported. Entire fleets vanished without a trace. Mining stations stopped answering calls. Cargo convoys sent their departure codes, but never arrived at their destinations. To most, it was simply the cost of life in deep space. Pirates, dangerous anomalies, or enemy sabotage. But a small group of traders began noticing a disturbing pattern. The disappearances happened in complete silence. No distress signals, no explosions, no debris. It was as if the ships had been plucked out of existence. The stories traveled faster than any patrol ship could. In the smoky corners of spaceports and in encrypted back channels of the datanet, the name began to appear more and more. The Dark Matter Fleet. No one could say where the name came from. Some said it was an old human legend, a ghost story told by Earth's earliest spacefarers. Others claimed it was a code name for a top-secret weapon project. A few dismissed it entirely as propaganda, designed to make someone, perhaps humanity, seem more dangerous than they were. But there were too many coincidences. On a trading station in the Vex system, a drunken Kreth pilot swore he had seen something in the darkness during a patrol. It wasn't black, he told the crowd. It was blacker. It moved like a shadow, but it wasn't. It wasn't right. And when it passed us, our ship went dead. Lights, engines, weapons, everything. For 3 whole minutes, we were blind. When the crowd pressed him for more, he only shook his head. When power came back, the shadow was gone. In the great council chamber, the mood had shifted. Before, ghost fleet rumors were a joke, something to laugh about over drinks. Now, the disappearances were happening too often to ignore. The Security Bureau presented reports showing that nearly all the incidents occurred in sectors near human space. The Zerith representative stood, his segmented armor rattling as he pointed a clawed finger at the human delegation. This is not coincidence. We demand to know what your fleets are doing in those sectors. The human ambassador leaned forward slightly, his face calm. Our fleets. He let the words hang in the air. Ambassador Zurith, humanity hasn't deployed warships beyond our borders in years. It was the truth. At least the part of it he was willing to share. But while the council argued, far from their sight, deep in the shadowed regions of the Perseus Veil, something vast and silent drifted. The dark matter fleet did not need light. Its hulls were built from an engineered substance that absorbed almost every form of energy. Standard scanners could not see them, and even if you were close enough to touch one, you might not realize it until the stars themselves vanished. Behind its form, inside those ships, human crews moved without hurry, each action calculated. Every member had trained for years under complete secrecy. They knew their mission, and they understood its importance. For decades, humanity had watched the galaxy laugh at them, weak, soft, harmless. But history had shown that underestimating humans was a mistake. Civilizations rarely survived. Now, the time for silence was almost over, back on Earth. In a small underground chamber far below the capital, the Defense Council gathered. The room was dark, the only light coming from a holographic map of the Orion Arm. A single voice spoke. The Council suspects, but they do not know. Another replied, they will know soon enough. The enemy armadas are massing, they think. Our borders are weak. A thin smile crossed the commander's face. Let them think it. Meanwhile, in the farthest edges of alien-controlled space, more disturbing reports arrived. A Vorak battleship, one of the most advanced warships in the galaxy, was found adrift. Every crew member was missing, though the ship's systems were intact. Its data core had been wiped completely clean by a method unknown to Vorak science. The Vorak were furious, but also afraid. In private, their admirals whispered a question no one dared ask aloud in the council chamber. What if the humans had been preparing for this all along? In the dark of space, a single massive silhouette moved without a sound. It had no visible engines, no glowing thrusters, yet it crossed entire sectors with impossible speed. Its hull was a deep void that seemed to swallow the stars. On its bridge, the captain gave a single order. Mark the next target. A tactical display lit up with a distant enemy convoy. Engage in 30 hours. No transmissions. And then, the ship melted back into the darkness, leaving nothing but silence behind. By now, the whispers had grown into fear. The council called an emergency meeting, demanding that all member species share intelligence. But the humans remained quiet, their faces unreadable. No one realized that the silence was not ignorance. It was patience, because the dark matter fleet was not ready to be revealed, not yet. When it finally was, the galaxy would never be the same. The council chamber had never been this silent. Representatives from more than 50 civilizations sat in a perfect ring, each one watching the main floor. At the center, a massive holographic display showed the latest fleet loss reports, bright red icons marking vanished ships. Entire task forces erased as if they had never existed. The Zarkon warlord slammed a clawed fist onto the table. This is an act of war. Someone is hunting our fleets. The Kreth representative hissed, his voice shaking. Not someone, something. These losses do not match any weapon we know. An old Vorak admiral leaned forward, his heavy armor creaking. No survivors, no debris, just silence. Tell me, what kind of weapon leaves nothing? No one spoke. At last the council chair turned toward the human delegation. Ambassador Callan, you've been unusually quiet through all of this. Do you have anything to say? The human ambassador stood slowly. His uniform was simple, almost plain compared to the ornate robes and armor of the others. Yet his voice carried across the chamber without effort. Yes, he said, I do, with Beth. A flick of his wrist, Callan activated a small device. The holographic display above the chamber flickered, then shifted. The fleet loss reports vanished, replaced by an image so dark that at first no one understood what they were looking at. Then a shape began to move. It was massive, larger than any known warship yet, almost impossible to see. Its outline was only visible because it blocked the stars behind it. No lights, no energy signature. It was a moving shadow. Gasps echoed around the chamber. This is impossible. One alien muttered. The shadow glided forward in the projection. And then, without a single flash or explosion, the enemy ship in front of it crumpled in on itself, folding like paper before vanishing entirely. The Zereth ambassador slammed a hand on the table. What is this trickery? What ship is that? Callan's eyes didn't leave the projection. That, he said quietly, is one of ours. The chamber erupted in shouts. Some called it a lie. Others demanded proof. But Callan simply let the hologram play. Now the shadow moved again, revealing more like its 7. Then 12, then dozens of them, each one a colossus of darkness. They surrounded a full enemy armada. The armada tried to flee, firing every weapon they had, but the shadows absorbed the blasts as if they were nothing. And then they struck. Gravity weapons, silent and unseen, tore enemy ships apart, molecule by molecule. Some simply imploded into black spheres before vanishing. Others folded into thin streams of light, erased from existence. The whole battle was over in less than 3 minutes. When the feed ended, the council chamber was silent again. The Vorak admiral spoke first. How long have you had these? Callan's expression didn't change. Long enough. The Zarkon warlord's voice trembled with rage. Why have we never seen them before? Callan's gaze swept the room. Because we didn't need you to see them. Until now. The Kreth representative leaned forward. If these dark matter ships are real, then why reveal them at all? You could have ended this war in silence. Callan's lips curved in two. The faintest smile we could have. But sometimes, people need to understand exactly why they should be afraid. The council chair's voice was tense. Afraid? Are you threatening us, Ambassador? Callan shook his head slowly. No, not you. But there are forces moving against us. All forces that believed humanity was too weak to matter. They were wrong, and now. He pressed another button on the device. The hologram changed to show a star map, dozens of red markers blinking deep in enemy territory. Now they know it too. Far from the council chamber, in the darkness between the stars, the dark matter fleet moved. Its ships made no sound, left no light, cast no shadow. They were the invisible hunters of the void. each one carrying weapons that bent reality itself. Their captains received their orders in silence. Coordinates appeared on their consoles, followed by a single word: advance. One by one, the ships melted into the black, becoming indistinguishable from the emptiness around them. And somewhere in that darkness, a voice spoke over a secure human channel. Operation Black Horizon is now active. Targets confirmed. Engage at will. By the time the council meeting ended, one truth had spread among its members like a disease. Humanity was no longer the harmless newcomer. They had become the thing everyone whispered about in the dark. The dark matter fleet was real, and it was watching. The enemy armada had been moving toward human space for weeks. Hundreds of warships, each armed with enough firepower to shatter moons, advanced in tight formation. Their commanders were confident, too confident. In their minds, humanity's fleets were small, outdated, and scattered. A single push would crush them before the council could even respond. Admiral Threx of the Kreth Dominion smiled from his command throne. Once Earth falls, the rest of their colonies will beg for mercy, he told his officers. But there would be no mercy, not for them, in the cold emptiness between the stars. The dark matter fleet was waiting. They did not sit in open formation like the enemy. They drifted silently, spread across the void like predators surrounding prey. Their hulls swallowed all light. Two sensors, they did not exist. On the bridge of the lead ship Horizons, Edge Captain Mara Cade stood in the dim glow of tactical displays. Her voice was calm, almost cold. All ships, stand by for silent intercept. Weapons cold. No emissions. Around her, the crew moved with precision. No one speaking above a whisper. There was no rush. Timing was everything. The enemy never saw them coming. One moment, the armada was alone in the void. The next, the stars themselves seemed to vanish. Giant, impossible shapes slid into position around them, blacker than space, moving without sound. Before the enemy could react, the first strike hit. There was no flash, no bright beam, just gravity. Mass drivers fired invisible projectiles that folded space itself, crushing enemy battleships as if they were made of paper. Shields didn't matter. Armor didn't matter. A single shot could turn a flagship into a cloud of atomized metal. The Kreth flagship lurched violently as to escort cruisers. Beside it simply imploded. Admiral Threx's smile vanished. Find them, fire all weapons. Weapons fire filled the void. Plasma bolts, railgun slugs, missile swarms. But every shot passed harmlessly through empty space. The dark matter fleet was already moving, vanishing between volleys, appearing in new positions without warning. Inside Horizon's edge, Captain Cade watched the tactical display as red enemy. Icons winked out one by one. Target their carriers, she ordered. No survivors. 4 ships broke formation and drifted closer. At just 2 kilometers, away point blank. In space combat they opened fire. The carriers vanished in perfect silence. Panic swept through the enemy ranks. Communications were filled with shouting, desperate orders, and broken signals. Some ships tried to retreat. Others fired wildly into the darkness. But the shadows followed. The silent Dominion, another dark matter warship, locked onto a fleeing destroyer. Its hull began to twist, warping unnaturally as the gravity weapon engaged. In less than a second, the ship was crushed into a sphere, the size of a shuttle. The crew never even had time to scream. From the Kreth flagship, Admiral Threx watched his proud armada die. One by one, his ships disappeared. No explosions, no debris, only the silent erasure of everything he commanded. A voice crackled over his comms. "Admiral Threx," it said, calm and clear. "Human. This is Captain Maracade of the Dark Matter. Fleet, you have entered restricted space. You will not leave." Threx's hands tightened on his controls. "You think you can destroy us all?" Cade's reply was almost gentle. "No, Admiral. I already have." And then his flagship's sensors went dark. When the battle ended, only wreckage drifted where the armada had been. No dark matter ships were visible. The fleet had melted back into the void as if it had never existed. But every surviving alien in the sector, every scout, every listening post sent the same report back to their governments. The humans had unleashed something beyond understanding. The galaxy would never be the same. The battle was over. But its echo rippled across the galaxy in the council chambers. The warlords and ambassadors who once laughed at humanity now spoke in low, uneasy voices. The holofeeds played the same haunting images again and again, enemy warships vanishing into silent darkness, colossal shapes moving like living shadows, and fleets erased without leaving a trace. The term dark matter fleet was no longer just a rumor. It was a name spoken carefully, almost fearfully, as if saying it too loudly might draw the fleet's attention. The Kreth Dominion called an emergency summit, demanding to know how humanity had built such weapons in secret. The Empire ordered every science division to study dark matter technology, desperate to match it. Even the ancient Zarkan clans, who had never bowed to anyone, quietly moved their fleets away from human borders. But there was no war declaration, no one dared, because the truth had settled into every leader's mind if humanity chose to strike. No defense would be enough. On Earth, inside the same underground command center where the fleet's activation had begun, the Human Defense Council reviewed their victory. "Enemy fleets in Sector 9 have been destroyed," a commander reported. "No survivors, no transmissions leaked." The council chair nodded. "And the Council of Species? They understand now," another replied. "They'll think twice before underestimating us again." The chair leaned back in his seat. "Good. The dark matter fleet remains a shadow, and a shadow is most dangerous when unseen." Far beyond Earth, deep in the void, the fleet drifted silently. The warships did not rest in docks. They did not return home. They stayed in the black, scattered across hundreds of sectors, watching, waiting, on the bridge of Horizon's edge. Captain Maracade stood at the viewing glass, looking out at the dark expanse. "How long do we wait?" her first officer asked. Quietly, she didn't turn her head. "As long as it takes." The officer hesitated. "And if they come again?" Cade's eyes narrowed. "Then they'll remember." Somewhere in alien space, in the private chambers of the Vorak Emperor, a quiet conversation took place. "Your Majesty," his advisor said carefully, "if humans can build a fleet like this, perhaps we should seek an alliance." The Emperor shook his head slowly. "You don't ally with the storm. You take shelter from it and hope it passes." In the years that followed, no great war touched human space again, not because of treaties, not because of diplomacy, but because every admiral, every warlord, every emperor knew, if the dark matter fleet moved again, it would be the last thing they ever saw. And so the galaxy's balance had changed. Humans were no longer dismissed as weak or harmless. There was something far more dangerous, something the galaxy could neither predict nor control. In the darkness between the stars, The shadows still moved, silent and invisible, watching, judging, waiting, because they didn't fear us, until they saw the fleet. Now they would never forget.